Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar where we'll discuss coding, and we'll also run through a couple examples together. This was actually initially designed as a live coding webinar so that we could talk through the coding together in small groups and in particular discuss some of the challenges that arise when we do code or when we do rate group work. However, just to ensure that as many people as possible could benefit from the webinar, I've recorded this instead. But if you're planning on using this as a resource to work through the exercises with other teachers, I would just say make sure that you build in quite a lot of time throughout to pause the video and to talk through the different dialogue categories, the ways of coding, and then the challenges that arise during the coding itself. Before we start, I promise that coding is one of those things that just sounds and looks a lot more complicated than it is. And, you know, it just is, applying a coding scheme is a way to track the type of talk that is happening in the classroom or in the educational environment to know what's working and where the gaps are in order to ultimately improve practice. So for the first example or the first exercise together, I'm just going to play a video from the edudialogue.org site about practicing coding and whole class dialogue, and then we're going to do the associated exercise that's in this video together. I'll just play this video via my own recording software in order to keep this webinar as just a one video resource, but if you're having a hard time hearing it at all, it might be a bit quieter than my voice. I've also put a link to the video in the resources above this video that you can access on your own if for any reason you just can't hear it well or can't see it well. So I'll play that now for you.
Welcome to the TSED video guide on classroom dialogue. Coding whole class dialogue. Whole class dialogue is used several times throughout the school day. For example, in setting up an activity, establishing ground rules, planning a project, considering new information and ideas, and discussing shared experiences. It is usually expected that all students will listen and actively contribute in some way during whole class discussions. However, it's impossible to notice everything that's going on during the usual fast pace of whole class discussion. Taking a step back and considering what you want to observe and how you're going to do it can help you to focus and carry out a successful inquiry. For example, it's best to only focus on one or two codes during an inquiry so that you don't have too much to listen for. Have a look at the TSED user guide for more information about how to carry out an inquiry. As you can see, there are several methods for coding dialogue. It could be as simple as tallying when you hear a particular sort of dialogue. Pause to have a look through these different types of coding. One thing to consider is whether you will live code by observing and recording dialogue then and there, or whether you will record dialogue and code later. Pause here to have a look at the advantages of each. Here you can see the disadvantages of live coding or recording. Pause for a closer look at these. Coding dialogue can be challenging, but you can make it easier through collaboration with colleagues and students, focusing on a specific context and a short time period, linking closely to your inquiry focus, and setting times for review and evaluation of any changes observed. There's an activity coming up, but before you try it, make sure you know what the codes reasoning, invite reasoning, and challenge are. In this activity, watch the video of a mathematics lesson and see if you can find examples of reasoning, invite reasoning, and challenge. There's only one instance of challenge in this particular clip. See if you can spot it.
All right, so I know that we went through all of the codes that she mentions in this video that you'll need to know for the exercise. We went through all of them during the past weekly videos, but just to quickly recap them, I've just re-added in this table that you would have already seen. So the three that she mentions are firstly challenge, which you can code by using the letters CH, if that's easier. And that's questioning, disagreeing with, or challenging an idea. And the key words to look out for would be, I disagree, but are you sure? And so on. Then there's invite reasoning, which is the last one on the table, which you can code using the letters IRE if you'd like. And that's to invite others to explain, to justify, and use possibility thinking in relation to their own or another's ideas. Keywords to watch out for are why, how, do you think, and can you explain that further? And then there's reasoning, which I didn't include on this table, but you can code by using the letter R if you'd like, and that's to similarly explain, justify, and use possibility thinking relating to your own, one's own or another's ideas. Some keywords that might exemplify reasoning would include I think, because, therefore, if, then, and so on. So now we can watch the video clip together, and as was mentioned in the previous video, this does come from a mathematics lesson of a Year 6 class in England. Before continuing, just have that Word file open that is linked above this video, and it's titled Coding Sheet for Exercise 1, and take a moment to familiarize yourself with it before starting on the video, because it's a transcript and you'll have to code it turn by turn, so it'll just be helpful to sort of review it first to know what you're getting into. Again, I'll play the video via my recording software in order to keep this webinar as a one video resource, but if you can't hear it, just pause this and then follow the link above this video to watch it on your own instead. And I've listed that video as video B for coding exercise 1. I'll now play the video.
So
Okay, so what did you think about coding that transcript from that video? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Did you have to pause it in order to think about what you would code each turn as? And did it make you appreciate maybe some of the challenges associated with live coding, where it can be rather difficult to notice all of the turns that are taking place and to notice all of the categories of dialogue that are being used in the classroom? You might miss things with live coding, and so sometimes it just takes an exercise to understand how quickly it can really pass by you and how difficult it can be to reflect on each talk turn and to know exactly how to code it and why you're coding it like that. So I've put the results up on this slide, and you can pause the video here if you'd like and compare with your own results. But the teacher really does encourage the students to develop their ideas, like in turn 224, for example, and respond to others' ideas. And she also builds on students' contributions, like in 277. And then there's also the one example of challenge that in the last video, the narrator notes that there's only one example of challenge, and so I don't know if you found it, but it was in turn 223. So that was a really good example of what challenge can look like, done by Matthew. Another bit that I'll just mention about this video example is the actual activity itself, because I think that it is very important to acknowledge how an activity can really create that dialogic space and way of interacting. And so this offers an object for co-building, where students had to complete the activity collectively. And so it just really does indicate how an activity or a task can really help to encourage and develop that dialogic space. There are reflections also listed at the bottom of the coding document that you'll already have open. They're at the bottom, so if you haven't done so already, please do review those, because they offer some really helpful further insights into the dialogue that took place in the video, as well as how it was enhanced by both the teacher and the activity. It also includes specific characteristics of dialogue in the clip, such as the teacher encouraging the students to state when they disagreed with their peers, the students offering explanations, offering justifications, and also students building on the teacher's contributions as well. So now let's do another exercise together. Instead of coding whole class dialogue, however, let's practice coding small group dialogue, or rating small group dialogue, which is an exercise from video 16 on the edudialogue.org website. So this next video shows children in year 2 completing a tangram, and then they discuss a philosophical question altogether, and it's just really lovely. And so for this video, you're to consider the code reasoning in the coding scheme, which is to make reasoning explicit. It's, as we've said before, explaining, justifying, using possibility thinking, relating to one's own or another's ideas. And the keywords, of course, are things like I think, because, so, therefore, in order to, if, then, imagine if, and could, among others. You'll then need to use either tool 2C or 2D, or even both actually, to complete this exercise, and they're available as Word documents above this video for you to download. They're titled TSETA Tool 2C for exercise 2 and TSETA Tool 2D for exercise 2. The tool C, that is a checklist for individual students engaging in group work, where you put the student's name down, and then you'll see on this slide I've just put where they were sitting for convenience, and then you can do that now on your copy if you'd like. And then you just tick whether or not you observed their use of whatever category of dialogue you're exploring. In this case, it's reasoning. You'll also give each student an additional rating of overall participation from 1 to 3, where 1 is low participation, 2 would be medium, and 3 would be high. Tool 2D, which is the bottom one on the slide, is a group rating scale from 1 to 3, which records more so the general nature of the dialogue in a group activity, with a focus, in this case, on reasoning. In this rating, a score of 1 means a low frequency of reasoning within the conversation as a whole. 2 would be medium frequency, and 3 would be high. And then you add in any comments in that third column in case there's anything noteworthy around the rating. So this is an opportunity to put in, if they're indicative of progress, for example, since the last time the rating was undertaken, or any nuances surrounding the rating that you think are important to include. I'll just caution before continuing that these checklists definitely aren't meant to provide exact measurements, and it does say that within the tools themselves as well, but rather they offer a quick and easy way to observe and to record differences between individual student participation. So feel free to pause here and download and familiarize yourselves with those two different tools. You could decide if you wanted to use one or both. It's totally up to you for this exercise. I'll now play the video, but again, if it's too difficult to hear it for any reason, I've also linked it above, and it is titled Video for Coding Exercise 2. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love that clip. I think I can watch it over and over again. But it's just so wonderful to see the reasoning that takes place. So I'll just move along to the next slide here, or actually, before I do, I suppose I'm just quite curious as to how that exercise worked for you, and in particular with those two different rating scales. And so I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts. And I know that this is a recorded webinar, of course, but if you do want to write them in the discussion forum, I think that would be great. And then we can have a bit of a conversation and discussion around them. So do feel free to post those if you'd like, including what you found maybe challenging about coding and rating the small group work. I think that the general consensus is that the rating scales with the buckets from 1 to 3 are easier to apply than the lettered coding scheme, but I'm just curious if others found that it was the opposite, or found it more challenging in any way. And so for these group rating scales, I'll also just say that they can be used in tandem with a narrative report of sorts to capture some of the more nuanced contextual information in those comment boxes, for example, from the tool 2D that you would have seen, where you can add in a narrative summary around a more nuanced understanding of those ratings specifically. And so that can be really handy for capturing, for example, things like the classroom ethos and the environment. And I think also what's a great idea is to ask the students what they think and what they thought about the dialogue that took place in their small group work. And that can really help capture some of those nuances as well. And so you can ask them things like how well they worked together, if everyone participated, and if hearing others' ideas changed their minds. I'm sure you'd get some really interesting responses. And there are also self-rating tools, by the way, that you can use with your students where they give themselves a rating for a number of different statements. So I'll leave it there because I know that you have been assigned various other examples to work through from the week 4 materials, and I don't want to overwhelm you too much, but I hope that this webinar gave you a little bit of extra helpful guidance on coding. So please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions at all. I'm always happy to chat further and to talk more about the templates if that would be helpful. There were many of those templates that I included in the week 4 materials as well, so do make sure that you're familiar with all of those so that you know which ones are maybe the most applicable for your setting and for your inquiries specifically. All right, I'll catch you on the week 5 materials in the video. Take care.